The studio lights softened, casting a warm glow over the sleek set of The Tonight Show. The audience, a mix of loyal fans and curious newcomers, settled into a hushed anticipation. Jimmy Fallon, perched on his host's chair, flashed his signature grin, but a flicker of unease crossed his face as he glanced at his guest. Caroline Leavitt, a Republican spokesperson with a reputation for sharp wit and unshakable poise, sat across from him, her posture relaxed yet alert. The show, once a bastion of apolitical humor, had shifted in recent seasons, its monologues increasingly peppered with pointed jabs at conservative figures. Ratings had begun to slip among viewers craving balance, prompting producers to book Leavitt, a rising star whose presence promised to stir conversation. What unfolded was not just a viral moment, but a cultural pivot, a clash of perspectives that would echo far beyond the studio walls. Leavitt was no ordinary guest. A former press assistant in the Trump White House and communications director for Representative Elise Stefanik, she had carved out a formidable presence in Republican politics. Her congressional campaign in New Hampshire's 1st District had thrust her into the national spotlight, showcasing her ability to connect with voters through clarity and conviction. She represented a new wave of conservative voices, direct, principled, and adept at navigating the minefields of mainstream media. The Tonight Show team, sensing an opportunity to boost viewership, had designed a segment called Quickfire, a gauntlet of politically charged topics meant to unsettle guests. Previous conservative figures had faltered under its pressure, their stumbles packaged into viral clips that fueled online chatter. Leavitt, however, had anticipated the challenge. Behind the scenes, her preparation was meticulous. She and her team had studied recent Tonight Show episodes, dissecting Fallon's monologues and guest interactions. They flagged the Quickfire segment as a potential ambush, noting how its rapid pace and loaded questions often left guests grasping for coherence. Leavitt rehearsed responses to likely topics, crafting answers that were concise yet substantive, designed to deflect traps while advancing her message. She understood the stakes. A misstep could haunt her career, but a strong performance could redefine her public profile. As she stepped onto the set, her calm demeanor masked the intensity of her focus, like a chess player entering a high-stakes match. The audience greeted her with polite applause, tinged with curiosity. Fallon opened with his trademark charm, asking about her journey into politics and her time in Washington. The exchange felt cordial, but an undercurrent of tension simmered. Viewers familiar with the show sensed a shift in Fallon's tone as he leaned into his first pointed question. "So, Caroline, you worked in the Trump administration," he said, his voice carrying a playful edge. "That must have been interesting." The audience chuckled, catching the implied critique. Leavitt smiled, her expression unruffled. "It was the honor of my life to serve the American people," she replied, her tone warm but resolute. "I'm proud of what we accomplished." Fallon nodded, his eyes darting to his cue cards, signaling the start of the real test. "Let's play a quick game," he said, his grin widening. "I'll give you a topic, and you give me your immediate reaction. Ready?" The audience leaned forward, recognizing the quick-fire setup. Leavitt's gaze held steady. "Sure, sounds fun," she said, her voice betraying no hint of unease. Fallon began with climate change. Without hesitation, Leavitt responded, "A serious issue that demands practical solutions through innovation, not heavy-handed government control. Her answer was polished, sidestepping the dogmatic response Fallon might have expected. He blinked, momentarily thrown, but pressed on. January 6th? A tragic day that I and all Americans condemn, Leavitt said firmly. Violence has no place in our political process. The audience stirred, intrigued by her clarity. Fallon glanced off stage, where a producer nodded encouragingly. He continued with election integrity. Leavitt didn't flinch. Essential to our democracy. Every legal vote must be counted, and Americans deserve systems they can trust. Each response was a master class in precision, neutralizing the segment's intent to provoke a gaffe. The studio's atmosphere shifted, the audience's curiosity deepening as Fallon's questions grew more direct. He pivoted to a broader challenge. "Your generation leans heavily Democratic," he said, his tone suggesting an inevitable truth. "Why do you think you're on the right side of history?" Leavitt leaned forward slightly, her eyes locking with his. "I don't claim to be on the right side of history, Jimmy. That phrase is often used to silence debate, not foster it. I believe in individual liberty, limited government, and the extraordinary potential of the American people. Those principles have driven unmatched prosperity and freedom throughout history." The audience murmured, unaccustomed to such unapologetic conviction in the late-night format. Fallon attempted a light-hearted quip to diffuse the tension, but it fell flat, the room's focus fixed on Leavitt. The segment intensified as Fallon introduced video clips of Leavitt speaking at rallies, each carefully edited to strip away context. "Would you like to clarify these statements?" he asked, after a particularly misleading clip played on the monitor. Leavitt didn't hesitate. "I'd be happy to provide the full context that clip omitted," she said, then proceeded to explain her broader point with clarity, transforming the snippet into a reasonable stance. Audience members exchanged glances, sensing the segment diverging from its usual script. This wasn't the anticipated takedown. Leavitt was reshaping the narrative in real time, turning the host's tools against him. Sensing the exchange slipping from his grasp, Fallon reached for a blue card, signaling a shift to Truth or Tweet, a segment where guests faced their past social media posts. "I found this interesting," he said, reading aloud. "You said young Americans are struggling because of failed democratic policies. Yet economists widely agree that current economic challenges stem from multiple factors: pandemic, global conflicts, corporate pricing. How do you respond to the experts?" The question was a cleverly constructed trap, positioning Leavitt against a supposed consensus of unnamed authorities. She paused briefly, then spoke with measured precision. "First, I'd challenge the notion that economists widely agree on that. Many respected economists point to excessive government spending as a key driver of inflation. Second, young Americans don't need experts to tell them what they're experiencing. When my generation can't afford groceries, rent, or the chance to start families, they know something's fundamentally wrong with policies that erode their earnings and limit opportunity." Her voice grew more forceful, but never hostile. "I've spoken with thousands of young voters who feel abandoned by politicians promising prosperity but delivering record inflation. This isn't about party. It's the lived reality of Americans across the spectrum." The audience, typically guided by Fallon's cues, began to shift. Some nodded, others whispered, drawn in by the logic and passion of her argument. Fallon attempted to interrupt, but Leavitt politely held her ground, completing her thought. The dynamic was inverting. What was meant to be a controlled ambush was becoming a platform for Leavitt's message. The host, sensing the need to regain control, made a tactical decision to invoke her youth, a factor his team believed would undermine her credibility. "You know, Caroline," he said, a trace of condescension in his voice, "you're very articulate for someone so young. But don't you think there's value in the perspective that comes with more life experience? Many of the policies you support might resonate now, but people who've seen more economic cycles, raised families, built careers, they often lean more progressive. Isn't it possible you'll look back years from now and realize you were on the wrong side of these issues?" The question hung in the air, crafted to sound respectful while fundamentally challenging Leavitt's legitimacy. The studio fell silent, cameras capturing the intensity of the moment. Leavitt held Fallon's gaze for a full 3 seconds, her expression unreadable but electric. Then she spoke, her voice clear and unwavering. "Jimmy, would you have asked that to a young progressive? Would you tell a Democratic spokesperson their views are invalid because of their age?" Fallon blinked rapidly, caught off guard, but remained silent. Leavitt pressed forward, her tone firm yet measured. "The assumption that wisdom only flows in one political direction is exactly why young conservatives are speaking out. I respect people of all ages and viewpoints. That respect should be reciprocal." She leaned forward, her words gaining intensity. "My generation is grappling with a housing market we can't afford, rising crime in our cities, inflation that devours our savings, and trillion-dollar debts we'll be forced to repay. These aren't abstract concerns. They're the direct consequences of policies enacted by people who won't live to face the fallout. So when you ask if I'll change my mind with time, I'd pose a different question. What gives anyone the right to mortgage our future while telling us we're too young to have a voice in the conversation?" She paused, then offered a warm smile, softening the weight of her words without diluting their impact. "I believe the American principle that all are created equal applies to every generation. We deserve the same respect as anyone else, not dismissal cloaked as concern for our youth." The silence shattered, with a single clap, then another, until the studio erupted in thunderous applause. Audience members rose to their feet, some visibly surprised at their own reaction. Fallon sat motionless, his usual quick wit failing him. I don't even know how to respond to that," he stammered, glancing toward his producers off stage. The applause swelled, forcing the show into an unplanned commercial break. As the cameras cut, Leavitt remained composed, her preparation evident in her steady demeanor, while Fallon scrambled to regain his bearings. When the broadcast resumed, the atmosphere had shifted. Fallon's questions took on a genuine curiosity, abandoning their earlier edge. A real conversation unfolded, a rarity in the polished world of late-night television. Leavitt responded with the same clarity and conviction, engaging Fallon on topics ranging from economic policy to cultural divides. The audience, now fully invested, listened intently, their earlier skepticism replaced by intrigue. As the segment drew to a close, Fallon extended his hand, his tone sincere. "You've given us a lot to think about," he said, shaking Leavitt's hand with a warmth that transcended their differences. "I think we'd all benefit from more conversations like this." The exchange, quickly dubbed the Fallon freeze for the host's stunned silence, ignited a firestorm online. Clips of Leavitt's response spread across social media, amassing millions of views within hours. Conservative outlets celebrated her performance as a masterclass in media navigation, while progressive commentators, though reluctant, acknowledged her effectiveness. The Tonight Show's official accounts notably omitted the segment from their posts, but viewers had already recorded and shared the full exchange, ensuring its reach. News programs across the spectrum dissected the moment, with analysts praising Leavitt's ability to maintain composure under pressure, while delivering a message that resonated beyond partisan lines. Leavitt's public profile transformed overnight. Her social media following surged, with hundreds of thousands of new followers drawn to her clarity and courage. Speaking requests flooded her office, from grassroots organizations to major think tanks. Even those who disagreed with her politics expressed admiration for her ability to articulate her positions in a challenging environment. The exchange sparked a broader conversation about age-based assumptions in political discourse. Opinion pieces in major publications explored whether dismissing young voices constituted a form of prejudice, with titles like, "Is Ageism the Last Acceptable Bias in Politics?" and "What Young Voices Bring to the National Stage." Commentators from diverse ideological backgrounds began questioning the tendency to equate youth with inexperience, noting that Leavitt's performance challenged such stereotypes. The impact extended into academic circles. Communications and political science professors incorporated the clip into their curricula, presenting it as a case study in effective messaging under hostile conditions. "This will be studied for years," one academic wrote on a widely followed social media account. Leavitt demonstrated how to redirect loaded questions, maintain composure, and deliver a principled response that transcends ideology. Universities hosted panels to discuss the exchange, inviting students to analyze its rhetorical strategies and cultural significance. Leavitt's approach, combining preparation, authenticity, and respectful assertiveness, became a model for aspiring communicators. Late-night television itself felt the ripple effects. Other hosts reportedly reviewed the segment with their teams, discussing how to engage guests with differing viewpoints without resorting to ambush tactics. Some producers began rethinking booking practices, recognizing that audiences craved substantive dialogue over predictable gotcha moments. The exchange highlighted a growing demand for authenticity in media, a shift away from scripted confrontations toward conversations that respected viewers' intelligence. For The Tonight Show, the moment was a wake-up call. Fallon addressed the viral clip in his next monologue, a rare moment of reflection in a polarized media landscape. "We had a conversation that got a lot of people talking," he said, his tone earnest. "And you know what? That's a good thing. We could all use more moments that challenge our assumptions." While not an apology, his acknowledgement signaled a willingness to engage with the criticism sparked by the exchange. Political strategists took note of the moment's broader implications. Polls conducted in the weeks following the segment revealed a shift among younger viewers who had seen the clip, with increased interest in conservative policy positions. The movement was subtle but significant, catching the attention of both major parties. "This is how you change culture," one commentator observed, "not through shouting matches, or viral zingers, but through articulate, principled communication that forces people to reconsider their assumptions. Leavitt's performance demonstrated the power of direct engagement, bypassing the traditional gatekeepers of political discourse to connect with audiences on a human level. For Leavitt, the appearance was a defining triumph. It cemented her as a voice for a generation demanding to be heard, a spokesperson who could articulate the frustrations and aspirations of young Americans facing economic and social challenges. Her ability to turn a potentially hostile environment into a platform for her message resonated with viewers who felt alienated by the political establishment. Invitations to appear on other programs poured in, and network executives who had previously hesitated to feature younger conservative voices began re-evaluating their approach. Leavitt's social media presence grew into a hub for discussion, with followers engaging in debates about policy, media bias, and the role of youth in politics. The exchange also prompted a reckoning within conservative circles. Strategists and communicators studied Leavitt's approach, recognizing it as a departure from the combative tactics of the past. Her blend of respect and resolve offered a new model for engaging with mainstream audiences, one that prioritized clarity over confrontation. Political consultants began coaching candidates to emulate her style, emphasizing preparation and authenticity over rehearsed talking points. The moment underscored a generational shift in conservative messaging, moving away from defensive posturing toward proactive, principle-driven communication. Beyond its immediate impact, the Leavitt-Fallon exchange carried lasting lessons for media and society. It demonstrated that substantive conversations were possible even in formats designed for entertainment, challenging hosts to engage more honestly with diverse perspectives. It highlighted the power of respect, both requested and given, to transform confrontation into dialogue. And it reminded viewers that behind the labels of conservative or progressive lay individuals with experiences and principles worthy of consideration. The moment became a touchstone in discussions about the future of political discourse, a reminder that authenticity and preparation could overcome even the most challenging environments. As the dust settled, the Fallon frieze remained a cultural artifact, replayed in classrooms, analyzed on panels, and shared among friends debating the state of politics. It stood as a testament to the potential for meaningful exchange in an era of division, a fleeting but powerful glimpse of what could be achieved when voices, young or old, liberal or conservative, were met with respect rather than dismissal. For Leavitt, it was more than a viral moment. It was a declaration that her generation would not be silenced, that their struggles and ideas deserved a place at the table. And for a nation grappling with polarization, it offered a glimmer of hope that dialogue, however fraught, could still bridge divides.